The purpose of this panel is to talk to current and former and both current and former student athletes about what it goes into managing that student athlete experience and how they've experienced their mental health journey and how they've experienced these different transitions from a mental perspective. So we're going to get into a little bit of what each of these panelists do to proactively engage with their mental health, in addition to some of the hurdles they may have gone over or some of the experience they may have had that might have deepened their understanding of what mental health is for them and how they want to engage with it. So we're going to go ahead and welcome the panelists. Stephanie Deschner. Stephanie is a recent Notre Dame University graduate, current N1 student at the University of Kentucky College of Medicine, and a foil fencer from Lexington, Kentucky. As a professional fencer, Stephanie qualified for 3 world teams. As a collegiate athlete, she has 2 national championship titles and received honors for being an NCAA Woman of the Year top 9 finalist, as well as an NCAA Woman of the Year. As well as a NCAA Today's Top 10 award winner. As an undergraduate, she earned a bachelor's degree of science and is continuing to pursue that interest through her medical schooling. Her other interests include hiking and journaling. Welcome, Stephanie. Next, we have Elizabeth Tartakovsky. She is a rising senior at Harvard University and a saber fencer from Livingston, New Jersey. As a professional fencer, Elizabeth has qualified for 5 world teams and won a total of 3 world championship medals. As a collegiate athlete, she is a 2-time All-American and the reigning women's saber national champion. Currently, her undergraduate studies are in the fields of economics and psychology. Her interests include playing the piano, various forms of exercise, and learning about mindfulness. Welcome, Elizabeth. Lastly, Sylvie Bender is a recent graduate of Columbia University, super recent, foil fencer from Armonk, New York. As a professional fencer, Sylvie has qualified for 6 world teams and won 2 world championship titles. As a collegiate athlete, Sylvie has earned 3 All-American honors, and she won the individual championship in 2019, among many other accolades. Just a few days ago, she graduated with her bachelor's in American Studies and Sustainable Development. And likewise, her interests include sustainability, energy, cooking, yoga, and painting. Welcome, everyone. So let's begin with our kind of general question. This question will be posed to every person in the panel, and they will give us their answers so we can get these different perspectives. So the first question is, how would you describe your mental wellness journey as a student athlete?
For me, my mental wellness journey has all been about a balancing act, and determining when I need to take a step back from fixating on either athletics or academics, and focusing on my wellness. I think that going to school and having independence really made me realize that I need to learn those behaviors. So college as a transitional period is all about balance, and finding that.
Yeah, I mean, like Sylvie said, it really is a balancing act. From a young age, I just kind of wanted to do everything. Um, so I think the most important thing that I learned was, just like Sylvie said, balance. Almost every year checking in with myself, like, am I enjoying this? Am I enjoying traveling while studying? Am I enjoying what I'm studying? Am I enjoying all these clubs that I joined at school, or is it just kind of like busy work? So really, like the whole journey, like ever since high school, has been thinking about everything almost, and learning how to balance it all, how it's contributing to your growth and to your happiness.
Yeah, I really like how you mentioned engaging with things intentionally. This idea of checking in to see if the things that you are doing are what you actually want to do. And on top of that, understanding what you want to do. I feel like that in itself is a whole journey, trying to figure out what it is that you actually like and what it means for you to like something.
Yeah, I think everything that Sylvie and Elizabeth have said, I definitely agree with. The idea is there that you either have mental strength or you don't. You're either strong enough to do it and go through the trials and tribulations of sport and make it through, or you don't. And so I always thought, whenever I would fall and start, doubting myself or thinking I'm not good enough to do this, whether that be in school or in fencing, that, oh, well, maybe that just shows that I myself am not strong enough to do this. Like we're talking about, intentionally trying to help your mental health grow with you. It's like physical training. It's not something that you can just leave aside and hope it gets better. It's something that you need to actively, and like you're saying, like the whole point of this is to intentionally improve your mental health for when trials and tribulations come about. Really being intentional about yourself as a person and recognizing that that's the foundation for everything else, and being mentally well as that foundational self helps in every other aspect of your life.
With Elizabeth talking about intentionality and Sylvie talking about this idea of balance, being able to find that intentional self and then figuring out the things you are able to balance. We're going to move into the next question. That was a great kind of overview and introduction to you all. This is another general question, meaning that every panelist is going to answer this one from their own perspective. So the question is, can you describe a challenging experience as a student athlete and how you were able to either get through it or overcome it?
Sure. So not every fencer is going to be making world teams. Everybody's goals are going to be different. So I'm going to speak to an experience that's a little more universal as an athlete. Fencing as an individual sport inherently always appealed to me, but I was very excited to be on a team going into college. Not every single person on your fencing team is going to be your best friend. And so I had one of those situations where I, love fencing and I love going to practice, but I don't love interacting with some people that I'm around. And I think that's something that a lot of people can relate to. And oftentimes it can take a toll on your mental health. Ultimately, like what I would suggest if anybody's having conflict with people as it relates to their athletics in school, is give it time and to find people that you do vibe with. I guess my point being, a challenging situation doesn't have to define fencing for you, especially if it's a social one.
So personally, for me, freshman year of college was really difficult. Socially, I wanted to make a lot of friends. Academically, I wanted to succeed in a new environment. With fencing, I wanted to, continue to achieve on the junior level, the senior level, fence for my team. So I was thinking about a lot of things. I felt like I was slowly losing my grasp of everything. And so like one piece of advice I got was that no one ever expects you to be the best fencer, the best student, the best girlfriend, boyfriend, the coolest, most social person. Like if you were able to do that, like you would get some kind of world prize. Like and just hearing that, knowing that like doing your best is what's most important, and really trying to stay present, that's kind of what got me through. Sacrificing some things like a day of practice or you know time to rest and relax, but like one thing you don't sacrifice is like your mental health and your sleep.
I really like kind of a nuanced thing that you said when you said when those things hit. And I think it connects some to what Stephanie was talking about viewing your mental health as a journey and a growing, developing component of your life, and not just something that you can push off to the side. Being of the mindset of let me best prepare myself and make my day to day as great and as possible, and also have the ability to understand and be more resilient almost when those challenging times come.
The hardest thing I've probably faced in my career so far is similar to Elizabeth. It was my freshman year of college, and my results in fencing and my results in school didn't just take a dip, they took an absolute plunge to the depths. I went from fencing wise, I went from trying to qualify for teams to barely being on the points list. And in school, it was very much a struggle to maintain the grades that I so easily got. It was heartbreaking, and it really put me in a very dark space. I just thought I was an awful person, that I hit my max in fencing in school. I remember calling my parents, telling them that I'm not going to become a doctor. I'm not smart enough. And thinking that I just need to retire from fencing because I have reached my peak. I really had to take a step back and talk with my family, some of my close longtime friends, and a big resource was sports psych. Highly recommend sports psychology if you can get involved in it. I had a very stagnant mindset, thinking that my attributes were fixed. My intelligence was fixed. My fencing ability was fixed. That's just not true. There is no attribute that can't continue to grow. And the biggest thing about growth, though, you can't look at who's next to you on your right or left and compare their rate to yours. What matters is that you just keep going forward at whatever rate that is. It can be very slow, it can be a crawl, or it can be, sometimes you can just blast forward, and that's great. Ultimately winning things or winning competitions and these big, big goals, they're good, but a lot of that is out of your control. What is in your control? Am I giving 100% in this bout? It's those little things that regain that internal control that helps the spiral into hopelessness of I'm never getting out of this. I'm just useless. I'm not smart. I'm not athletically gifted enough. You are. And sometimes it just takes a reframing of a mindset to get out of that hole.
Woo! You got me. I'm not gonna lie. I was crying just a little bit. You hit me in my emotions because I feel like I related to a lot of what you said. And this idea of like being able to shift your mindset into one that works for you, I feel like is one of the strings between what you were saying when you had these external expectations and external references and these really large goals that had a lot of external influences versus shifting it down to what is something that I can make my goal now and kind of ensure that I can achieve. We're going to move into like specific questions now. So each panelist is going to get a question that's a little more specific to their background or their identities to provide perspectives on that. So Sylvie, we're going to start, and kind of the topic that Sylvie's going to expand on is major decisions and transitions. You took a year off, for a semester off, to compete and train for the Olympic trials. How was the experience both leaving school and making that decision, being in that period, and then also coming back into school?
Let's give you all some context. So going into the 2020 Olympic trials, I was intending on not taking a year off. And my goal was eventually to try for the 2024 Olympics. But then everything changed when I made my first 16 in a senior World Cup about halfway through the season. And it was a really tough decision to make. Do I abandon school and give it everything? Do I find a balance? Do I not try and just keep going on my original goal of 2024? And ultimately, I decided to take the minimum number of courses at Columbia that I could. And I took very easy classes, past failing one of them, and then really just dedicating like 20, 30 hours a week to practicing. Between not sacrificing school, which means so much to me, and my community here, and also giving it what I could with fencing. Ultimately, I didn't make the team, obviously, which is fine. And I'm also glad that I stayed in school, because the pandemic happened about 4 months into my journey. And I came back to school this year as a senior after taking a gap year, deciding that for me, it was the best decision to not do online school. And it was better to just take a rest from everything, and reevaluate when I got back what was best for me. The pandemic did have like a crazy impact on a ton of people, a lot of athletes included. And I really had to think about what the role I want fencing to be in my life. And I decided that, for me, fencing is all about the community that I've like grown to love and, live with and travel with. And so I really only did things this year that made me happy as it relates to fencing. Some of that, includes traveling to World Cup and to NACS, but I really focused on the NCAA circuit because it brought me so much happiness. And without the pandemic and without that break, I don't think I would have been able to check in with myself. Coming from my perspective, having, trying it all, fencing on a really high level, fencing on a collegiate level, which is also taxing in a very different way, and then fencing for fun or not fencing at all. It's important to figure out when you want what, and to not push yourself to do things that you don't necessarily want to do, because at the end of the day, it's your life and you have to figure out what you want from it.
You talk a lot and you mentioned a lot of those like bigger and smaller decisions, or having how that decision that you made opened your idea to these other decisions that you could make. It stopped this automatic trap of I am a fencer and I go to every tournament that I can go to and I train as much as I can train, to what are my actual goals here? And then how can I reflect that in my time and my energy? Some things that you want for yourself are not going to be enjoyable, but to be critical about how much is it taking from you and how much is it giving you. I want you to talk about, the ways that you engage in your community and yourself in terms of mental health. So kind of, I call it the commonwealth and wellness.
What you inspire me to do actually, Mon, is like actually being vocal and sharing about your own like struggles and experiences. My first time being a captain on the fencing team this past year, something I tried to do was like having the bravery to initiate the conversation, like, about like your own struggles, to let people know that like this is a place where you can say like, I failed the test the other day, I cried myself to sleep, whatever, to know that like, everyone is human, everyone struggles, everyone really has their own journey, and there's no use in comparing.
What's it like managing now professional school and professional athletics, being in a doctorate medical program and also competing in that kind of senior circuit?
What I always tell people that ask me, what's it like fencing in med school or in grad school, whatever, postgraduate, basically, compared to college, is for the first time in my life, being a student athlete, I only hold that identity. There's no such thing as this hybrid student athlete. According to medical school, I'm a medical student and fencing is a hobby. And as a hobby, it is not something that they think I would do to the extent that I do. It's very hard, and it was hard for me at the beginning because I didn't feel a lot of gratitude or appreciation from either side. I felt like each side was taking a lot from me and not giving a lot back. Med school doesn't care that I was in Korea, and fencing didn't care that I had all this stuff afterwards, but I did, and I was really proud of myself that I was able to schedule my time and get through all of it. People's praise and people's like awe at you trails and goes away. But if you're your own biggest cheerleader and take time for yourself to say, you are doing something that is really hard, and I am really proud of me. I am really proud of all of the things I'm doing. I think it just helps to get through the hard times. And I think checking in with myself and realizing where I need to give and take helps a lot. It's been a rewarding year because I think I've really grown in being proud of myself, which isn't something I've let myself do before, but it's helped me get through a lot of struggles in the year and a lot of long nights of studying.
Taking ownership of your life is like this kind of underlying concept. So it's like you're not fencing for mom and dad or for coach or for whatever. Like, you were the one fencing. It has to somehow be about you. This is a question about proactive mental health. So can you name one or maybe two proactive mental health tactics that you have developed or that you use currently in your mental health journeys?
Yeah, so I would love to highlight what Natalie V did in the past hour. Throughout the pandemic, I became increasingly interested in yoga and its ability to make my mind and my body feel so much better after even just 30 minutes, 20 minutes of focused energy. And so that is definitely a proactive technique that enhances my mental health. Yoga has really helped me kind of maintain my flexibility, but also just my peace of mind and my sanity. So I highly recommend it for others.
And in terms of how to be proactive about mental health, it's really for me, it's been a journey of building like a mental health routine. Whenever life hits you in the moment, it's really hard to just tell yourself, okay, calm down. Like, how are you gonna calm down when, everything's going on? So uh, an example is that I wake up every day and I try to like do some breathing exercises or like a 5 minute, 10-minute meditation, whatever it is. Um, Doing that every day, setting that goal so that you're more resilient to, um, all those overwhelming feelings that might come. I think that for me, it helps just to be like aware of where my thoughts go and what I tend to do in those situations. So, yeah, I would suggest like starting with one thing, maybe just like anything to any time in the day where you can be like a little bit mindful. I think just like building a routine can go a long way.
I love journaling. That's a way for me, writing things down, writing out my thoughts in kind of a stream of consciousness is a way for me to connect with myself. Sometimes I feel like if I can get it out on paper, it's a way for my mind. And a lot of times, the big problems that I thought were so unsolvable are a little bit less big once I can just get them out. You're your own biggest supporter and your own biggest friend. You should take 30 minutes to connect with yourself, whether that be yoga, like what Sylvie said, or breathing and meditation, like Elizabeth, or journaling for me.
Iman's goal in this webinar is really important. Mental health is not just about when you're in crisis, it's an everyday practice. And it's also something that you don't have to deal with alone. Everybody has their own journey with mental health. And while those are each different, we can learn from each other. As I've learned just in this past hour from Stephanie and Elizabeth. And we don't talk about mental health enough. And in elite athletics, it's crazy because it seems like you're all alone and you're really not. And so I'm really grateful for this community of really strong athletes. So go us.